So how can you prepare for the 21st of December 2021? This is also known as the winter solstice, which is the day in the year where the days start kind of getting longer. It's supposedly a very significant event and a very significant date for moving into kind of the new Earth or the 5D Earth. And all of these kinds of things you've probably heard quite a lot in the spiritual community. So what can you do to prepare for this? And should you be worried? Is there anything you should know about? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. By the way, I do have a free video training which will show you how to very quickly raise your vibrations and kind of help resonate your body with the upcoming changes. And it's completely free. The link's in the description. It should be the kind of first thing you see down there. And so go and check that out. So firstly, will we ascend? Well, the true answer is that although there's lots of things pointing towards the kind of the direction that we're going in terms of like the Great Awakening, consciousness expanding, people starting to question things, but that's kind of the surface level stuff. The truth is we don't know 100% for sure. All we know is that something is coming. Things are kind of building up to a climactic event, which could go in a number of different ways, to be honest. Depends on which timeline will play out. The undeniable thing is that something is coming. The debate or kind of the grey area comes around what specifically will happen. And we'll get onto that and some likely scenarios in a second. But firstly, let's just set the scene, right? So you've probably been noticing in kind of the last year or two, there's been a lot of pressure. And this pressure has been applied through various different means, like the government, different systems, figureheads, influencers, celebrities, and your peers. The pressure has been put on us to do certain things. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but this pressure has been kind of unprecedented. It's not really happened in this way before. And so much so that it's causing people to question everything because they're thinking, hold on a second, there's so much pressure and focus on this one particular thing or this group of things. Why is that? What is the reason for that? Because it's clearly not about, what they say it's about. There's clearly something else here. So what's going on? And another thing that you might have noticed is that, especially if you've been kind of looking into this stuff for a while now, is that things are now happening very much in the open. This stuff used to be kind of hidden in many ways. It used to be, you used to have to do a lot of digging to find what's really going on. And even then it was sometimes a bit of a stretch because, you're kind of connecting these dots together. You don't really know for sure some things, but you kind of look at the bigger picture and you see it. Well, now those individual dots are no longer hidden. Everything pretty much is out in the open, publicly available, to the point where in many cases they even tell you directly what they're doing. And some people still don't see it, but this stuff is no longer hidden. It's very much in the open, and it's making a lot of people question, okay, so why is that? Why is this stuff so obvious and open now and being so much, in many ways, so rushed and so forced in such a short amount of time, almost as if time seems to be running out or things are needing to be rushed because there's a time limit. And I think there really is a time limit. And I'm going to get onto exactly what I think about that in a second. So like I said, people used to hide things. And as we go towards the 21st of December and beyond, to be honest, it's very difficult to hide things now. With the frequency of the planet and where people's consciousness is at, it's very, very difficult, much more difficult than it ever used to be, in my opinion, to hide what is really happening, the truth. And not just on the surface level. I mean, there's been a lot of talk recently about the surface level stuff, the physical, he did this, they're making this group of people do this. They're making, I have to be careful with my words, they're, trying to force somebody to take something. That's, in my opinion, very, very much the surface level stuff. The ripples on the top of the pond. Okay, this is really not important in my opinion. This is like the after effect or the echoes of what's really happening, which is an interdimensional spiritual, I don't want to say war, but a spiritual shift that's happening between the old way of doing things and the new way. Between, let's call it lower frequency and higher frequency. And when these two things collide, or when there's this shift happening, the after effect of that is obviously on the surface level, you see chaos. Or seemingly, it seems to be chaos. It seems to be like random, desperate, uncoordinated. But really what's happening is just an unstoppable shift in consciousness between the lower and higher consciousness. And that has been named many things. I think, I've heard it being called all kinds of things. Ascension, the Great Awakening, the conjunction, 5D, Earth, the Golden Age, Age of Aquarius. There's all kinds of different descriptions for this shift that's happening. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter which description you use, because they all point to the same thing: a change of consciousness, a change of your state. So I think one of the biggest things that certainly that I've learned, and that I've summarized from other people's research and what other people are learning as well, is that it's much about letting go. It's a lot of this has to do with just letting go of the old system, the old way of doing things, but also the old you, the old kind of version of your consciousness. Because in order to ascend and grow, we have to let go of what was there before. And I think like many things in the universe, it's kind of a fractal, like a hologram. So what you see happening on the big scale, right? So systems crumbling down, things being kind of eroded and changed and doubted, is the same thing that's happening on the micro level individually, where you, maybe not you personally, but it could be you personally, will have these kind of beliefs, these old belief systems, these maybe insecurities, fears, doubts that used to be there within you, which are now kind of falling away. They're crumbling down so that something new can take their place. So I think although that's happening on the individual level, it's being echoed on the bigger scale as well. Everything seems to be a fractal, right? I think one of the interesting things that happens or has happened in the last year is people become very aware of the surface level stuff. That's kind of the easiest thing to notice, because it's physically there happening. It's physically there. You can see this and verify it publicly. That's the easy stuff. But then that's really just a starting point, in my opinion. You look at the stuff and you realize what's going on, and then that causes you to question other things, and then it kind of leads you down the road to question really everything about not just yourself, but the entire reality that we think we're living in. And not the surface level reality. I mean the physical kind of, the structure at the micro level, like the individual parts that make up an atom or an electron or whatever, and how these things are all connected. And it made me look into a lot of quantum mechanics as well, and like the non-locality of electrons and particles, basically, where every particle is connected to every other, even regardless of space and time, which is kind of mind-blowing. But this is really an interesting description which corroborates the ancient knowledge. So 5,000 years or more ago, they knew everything was connected. They knew that our consciousness and our intentions influenced the physical reality we live in. And then, of course, there was let's call it a gap in consciousness, where the majority of the world forgot that and instead focused through like programming and agendas. They focused on materialism, consumerism, and being separate from everything. But really, we're not separate at all. None of us are separate to any other thing. Really, the idea of separation is just completely an illusion. There is no separation. And I think that is what people are now realizing. So I think a large part of what will happen after, well, now as well, but also after the 21st of December, as we move into this new phase, is that people will start to let go of their old expectations, beliefs, doubts, fears, insecurities on a personal level, and then they'll kind of move into the new version of themselves. And then by doing that on an individual level, then you kind of add to what's happening on a societal level, which is where massive groups of people, huge numbers of people, billions, millions and billions of people are changing their consciousness and their level of awareness. And what happens when, even if you have a small number of people doing that, like a tiny percentage of people, let's say you have like 0.5% of the world changing their consciousness and being more aware of things, the effect that has on the collective, everyone else, is enormous, because you start to vibrate at a certain level, and then that influences everyone around you. And there's different names for this, like you've got the ripple effect, the butterfly effect, and non-locality of electrons, and all of this stuff really just goes to say that each one of us influences and affects every other person, particle, thing, situation. So when you have a group of people, like a small percentage, 1%, 0.5% of people, who are now vibrating in this higher frequency, at this higher level, in everything they do and think and believe and are, that has a huge effect on everything else. Quite a good analogy I heard was that it doesn't take much light to illuminate a dark room. You know, if you have like a pitch black room where you can't see anything, and then you shine like a tiny LED keychain, even that tiny amount of light is going to illuminate the whole room, and you'll be able to see everything. So when you consider that light makes up a tiny percentage of the volume of that room, like this can be like an enormous hall, right? Imagine a pitch black hall, and you shine a tiny LED keychain. The keychain makes up, I don't know, something like 0.00%, 0.001% of the volume of the room. Or another way of thinking about it is if you imagine like a football stadium, and it's pitch black, and then you have on the floor, you have like millions of LED keychain lights, and they're all off. They're not shining their light. And then you have one that's turned on. The effect that will have is that you will be able to see almost the whole stadium. You know, if it's pitch black, you'll be able to see almost everything just from one keychain being on. And that's really what's happening now, is that this tiny percentage, it's not even tiny actually, it's quite a large percentage of the world who are awakening, they help everybody else to see. And then it becomes unstoppable. And this is really what I think is happening, is that you have this situation which can't be contained, and it can't be stopped. And I think that is what's going to happen in 2022, 2023. And the interesting thing, if just going back to the surface level stuff, right? I actually find that stuff kind of boring. I'm more into the metaphysical and the deeper philosophical implications of all this stuff. But if we go back to the surface level stuff, let's say if they, right, keep pushing and keep trying to divide and cause fear and impose their will on the world, right? The harder they do that, the harder they push, the more it will cause people to wake up, and then those people waking up will cause more other people to wake up, and it becomes this situation where you can't do anything about it. You know, the harder you push, the more it happens. If you stop pushing, it will still continue to happen, because these people are not, like, once you've ascended or raised your consciousness and your frequency, it's very difficult to then go back down. You can't kind of constrain your mind once it's already been expanded. So yeah, by the way, I just reminding you, I do have the free vibrations training. It's like a 3-step process that will help you to very quickly raise your vibrations and ascend. If you're struggling in any way, or if this is kind of becoming stressful, none of this should be stressful, by the way. There's really nothing to fear and nothing to worry about. But if that is the case, if you are kind of stressed or worried in any way, I really believe this training will help you to vibrate and shift yourself so that this becomes very exciting for you. This becomes like an enormous opportunity for you to change your consciousness. So yeah, it should be the first link you see if you scroll down. You should be able to just see that free training there. So go and check that out, and do kind of take a moment to just scroll down and let me know what you think about this. By the way, if you're seeing this like on social media, or if you've been sent this on Telegram, or I don't know where you're seeing this, please share it with whoever you think it might benefit, whoever you think might be feeling stressed or worried or uncertain about all of this stuff, because I think this is an interesting opinion to share. So yeah, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this, and don't worry about any of this stuff. You know, this is all, in my opinion, this has all been planned. This is all kind of by design. So what's going to happen is going to happen. It's all fine.